Welcome again, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about, establishing healthy or healthier boundaries when dealing with toxic people. And I was asked to, kind of speak on this, touch on this, with how we interact nowadays with people in regards to having healthy boundaries. So I want to talk about that and give further emphasis on the importance of setting these sound boundaries. So basically, healthy boundaries create barriers or buffers based on your values, morals, your ethics and whatnot. They are things that stand between you and kind of like the outside world and anything that anyone that you may be dealing with. And so most people find themselves involved with toxic people or narcissistic individuals. They usually have poor boundaries and in some cases faulty belief systems. Okay. And I'll get into that a little bit more and explain why that typically plays itself out in that way. As society evolves and changes with every year, every decade that passes, it becomes even more challenging for people who are empathic or moral or, that are principle oriented, right? It becomes more of a challenge because now we live in a world where people are becoming more and more they're not social, okay? And they're not willing to assimilate properly into the social norms. They're not willing to play fair. They're not willing to go along with the general society and the rules of society and accepting the agreed social norms, at least. Instead, you have a bunch of ego-driven maniacs that wish to impose their rules and their way upon others, right? And like I said, in other words, not playing fair, not playing by the rules. And when you have individuals that are like that, for those who are empathic and live off a certain principle, that can be quite dangerous for those, because as we stick to old methods and ways of doing things, we are putting ourselves at risk for being targets, for being victims of these type of individuals. Okay. And the reason that is because with so many individuals choosing to adopt a certain way of thinking that involves exploiting others or getting over or using people, that way of thinking starts to to spread on a larger scale, at least. And that state of mind that's me forces empathic people to also adopt and change in the way that we operate and deal with people as well. Because with the more selfish state of minds and mentalities that are developed, the more you have to adjust the boundaries that you may have thought were good enough to get you by in society. Some things have become played out. Some things are no longer usable or applicable in today's society. We can no longer give the benefit of the doubt the way that we may have used to, or going along with that way of belief and thinking. That'll get you in trouble nowadays. Benefit of the doubt instead should be, an observation of constant or consistent behavior after a significant period of time. I mean, just think about it. You go back to where you had, chivalry, politeness, being considerate, accommodating. All these things can be viewed by toxic individuals, especially narcissistic people, as weakness. Or it can be looked at as, a victim suitability indicator for the narcissist type of person. They look at these things to say, well, the kindness is taken for weakness. And you will be preyed upon. Right? And so going along, we have to adapt like an equal exchange rule. Okay? And this is not a tit for tat type of thing, or keeping tabs, on what someone else has done and whatnot, but there has to be some level of worthiness validation before you give freely without expecting an equal exchange rate to be at play. Okay? If you go about constantly doing for people who may ask for favors without keeping the exchange rate balanced, before you know it, you'll quickly find yourself on the losing end. You'll quickly find yourself being exploited. Okay? And these things and the way that this happens, just because a person, there's a way where you run into, to digress a little and go back, when you look at these mannerisms of being polite and stuff, this may have been more respected in a different way back in maybe 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, that, in that time where you had more people who lived off a certain principle and morals and stuff of that nature. But now that's out the window. Well, society is slowly drifting further and further and further away from things that are morally right. So by default, it's producing a lot of these narcissistic, toxic type of people. And for those who are empathic, it is important that you adjust and adapt at least to what is going on as well. You can no longer just be these things that are virtuous to people and do it freely. Because now you even have instances where people are conditioned by their consistent interactions with certain types of people that will produce certain types of behavior within them. So, for example, if you got someone who's used to having someone do things for them, right? They will, in a lot of ways, inadvertently expect you to do the same thing, that entitlement, or they will look for that type of person that will be the same way. Okay? And that's it becomes a habit, right? Because they're being conditioned to seek out those who will give them favors or something of that nature, if that's what they're used to getting from people who they deal with. That can quickly become a toxic type of thing that you can find yourself a part of, because once you start to give to individuals like that, they will always have their hand out constantly. Every time you turn around, their hand is extended. And, you know, in most cases, they know that it's not right, because the balance here, again, that I spoke about, is the equal exchange. They know it's not right, but they have to find a way to make or put you at ease with giving without proving the worthiness of that person that you're giving to. In other words, has this person earned your kindness, your giving nature towards them? Have they earned that? Have they been proven worthy of it? Because if a person hasn't, and they know that they're not haven't been proven worthy of receiving from you, then yes, automatically you're gonna be looked at as a fool. Because if all they can do is give you lip service, then it's like you're not getting a good ROI out of that. You're not getting a good return on your investment from what you're giving out. And for those who are exploiters and manipulators, they've basically, hit the jackpot. They ran into the perfect fool. So again, these individuals have to be properly vetted. Meaning you have to consistently check your own boundaries and make sure that you are not out here just, passing out and extending, courtesies and stuff to individuals who haven't been proven to be worthy of it. Because that's what it's really about. It's about validating the worthiness of the other individual who is on the receiving end if you're giving. And a lot of times people don't do that. A lot of times people just allow, certain promises or, the condition of you have them, they may tell you how thankful and all that they are for it, but that's no. You'll find yourself, you'll be a walking charity. They'll be a walking charity, and you'll be the donator. And, a lot of times these individuals, when they see that they have someone that's giving, you can always tell the nature of that type of person, because let you say no or cut them off or do not go along with the giving aspect. Do they stay the same? Does things go along as normal? Or do you find them quickly changing up on you and distancing themselves when they know they can't get out of you anymore? Clear indicator that you were only there to serve a purpose. This person was using you. And this is where healthy boundaries come into not allow yourself to be used in that way. If you don't establish this, if you don't stay consistent with paying attention to how you're interacting with people, if you don't really pay attention to how you are assessing the worthiness of someone else, you will be used, especially by these type of individuals. There's a video, I'm gonna leave it in the link in the description box. I think it's very informative. It's an interview with a guy that's a diagnosed sociopath, has a lot of narcissistic tendencies or characteristics to him himself as well. It's a very interesting perspective on how these individuals think. Now, some of the things he may have been lying in within the conversation, within the interview, but I think a lot of the things he was telling was spot on. But anyway, I think it's a good look, and it will open your eyes to how these individuals see you when they encounter you, and why it's important to even more so establish healthy boundaries. I might have to do a part 2 to this, but anyway, I'm going to leave that in the link in the description box. A lot of this I mentioned in the Quiet Weapons for Silent Wars Against Narcissists tour. With that, I mentioned and talked about a lot of this in there. And a lot of this you can, with creating the healthy boundaries I have with my e-course academy, the Anti-Narcissist Awareness Training Academy e-course that I have as well. A lot of this is in there about how to help, strengthen your boundaries, how to put things together to, create a stronger personal constitution. So for yourself. Anyway, if you're interested in any of those things, I'll leave that all in the link in the description box. And again, I said I might have to do a part 2 to this. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all soon. Have a good one.